process server found me at my desk on a Tuesday morning, right in front of my entire office. "Vesperine Dalloway?" she asked, holding a manila envelope like it contained my death sentence. I nodded, my coffee growing cold as she placed the papers in my trembling hands. Divorce petition. Irreconcilable differences. Evidence of adultery attached. How did a simple loyalty test for my controlling husband end with me losing everything I thought I deserved? The idea came to me during one of Markus's jealous episodes. We were sitting in our suburban living room, the same beige walls and family photos that had witnessed 9 years of marriage, when I casually mentioned that my ex-boyfriend Eliot was performing at a music festival in Los Angeles. "That's nice," Markus said, not looking up from his laptop, where he was reviewing client tax returns. At 34, my husband had become predictably boring. Accountant by day, worried father by night, always concerned about budgets and schedules and proper behavior. "He invited me to come see his show," I continued, watching for his reaction. "Just as friends, of course." Now Markus looked up, his brown eyes narrowing slightly. "Your ex-boyfriend invited you to Los Angeles?" "It's not like that," I said, already feeling the familiar surge of irritation at his suspicious tone. "We dated in college, Markus. That was over a decade ago. We're adults now." "Adults who are married to other people," he said quietly. I rolled my eyes. "See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You don't trust me at all." "It's not about trust, Vesperine. It's about boundaries. Why would you want to travel across the country to see an ex-boyfriend?" "Because maybe I want to prove that I can have normal friendships without my husband acting like I'm going to run off with the first man who shows me attention." The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't take them back. Markus closed his laptop slowly. "Is that really what you think? That I'm controlling?" "Aren't you?" I stood up, pacing to the window that overlooked our perfectly manicured lawn. "When was the last time I went anywhere without you questioning every detail? When did I last have a girls' night without you texting me every hour? I text you because I care about you, because you're my wife and the mother of our daughter. Our daughter, who's 9 years old and perfectly capable of surviving a weekend with her father while her mother takes a short trip." Markus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "So you've already decided to go?" "I'm thinking about it." I turned to face him, crossing my arms. "Unless you're going to forbid me." "I can't forbid you to do anything, Vesperine. You're a grown woman." "But you disapprove?" "I think it's a bad idea. I think going to see an ex-boyfriend in another city, especially without discussing it with your husband first, sends the wrong message." "To who? To you or to him?" "To everyone. To our daughter, to our families, to yourself." I felt that familiar heat rising in my chest, the same feeling I got whenever Markus tried to lecture me about appropriate behavior. "You know what, Markus? Maybe this is exactly what our marriage needs. A test." "A test?" "Yes, a test to see if you can actually trust your wife, or if you're going to spend the rest of our marriage acting like a jealous teenager." Markus stood up slowly, and I noticed how tired he looked. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a few years ago, grey threads in his dark hair. "And what happens if I fail this test?" "You won't fail if you actually trust me." "And what happens if you fail?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "What happens if you go to Los Angeles and something happens between you and Eliot? What happens if this test proves that maybe the problem isn't my jealousy?" I stared at him, feeling suddenly defensive. "Nothing's going to happen, Markus. That's the whole point. I'm going to go, have a nice time catching up with an old friend, and come home to prove that your jealousy was completely unfounded. And if something does happen, it won't. But if it does," I shrugged, trying to appear casual even though my heart was racing, "then I guess we'll know where we stand." Markus nodded slowly, and something in his expression changed. It became distant, calculating. "Okay. Okay? Okay, go to Los Angeles. Take your test. But understand that tests work both ways, Vesperine. Before I could ask what he meant, our daughter Sadie appeared in the doorway, her blonde hair messy from sleep. Why are you guys arguing? We're not arguing, sweetheart, I said quickly, forcing a smile. Mommy might take a little trip, that's all. Where? To Los Angeles, to see an old friend. Sadie looked between us, picking up on the tension even at 9 years old. Can I come? Not this time, baby, but Daddy will take good care of you. She nodded and padded over to Markus, who lifted her onto his lap. I watched them together, feeling a strange pang of something I couldn't quite identify. Guilt, regret, or just annoyance that they looked so comfortable without me. When? Markus asked. When what? When are you going? Next weekend, Friday through Sunday. He nodded, stroking Sadie's hair. I'll make sure to clear my schedule. That night, I called my sister Tara to tell her about the plan. At 29, Tara had never been married, and she had strong opinions about what she called patriarchal control in relationships. Good for you, she said immediately. It's about time you stood up to him. It's not about standing up to him, Tara. It's about proving that he can trust me. Same thing. Markus has always been too controlling. Remember when you first started dating and he didn't want you going to that party without him? I did remember, though I recalled it differently. Markus had been concerned because the party was at a house known for getting out of control, and there had been several assault incidents in the area, but Tara's version felt more validating. He just needs to learn that I'm not his property, I said. Exactly. You're a grown woman with your own life and your own friends. If he can't handle that, maybe he's not the right man for you. The words sent a little thrill through me. Not because I wanted to leave Markus, but because someone was finally validating what I'd been feeling for months. That I was suffocating, that I deserved more freedom. That maybe, just maybe, I'd settled for less than I deserved. I booked the flights that night while Markus was putting Sadie to bed. Round trip to LAX, Friday afternoon to Sunday evening. As I entered my credit card information, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness that I hadn't experienced in years. When Markus came back downstairs, I showed him the confirmation email. Flight 447, departing at 2:15 p.m. on Friday, I said. I'll be back Sunday at 9:30 p.m. He looked at the email for a long moment, then pulled out his phone and took a photo of the screen. What are you doing? Just making note of your schedule, he said calmly, in case of emergencies. Something about his tone made me uncomfortable, but I pushed the feeling away. This was exactly the kind of controlling behavior I was trying to address. Why did he need to document my travel plans like I was a suspect in a crime? I'll text you when I land, I said. I'm sure you will. That night, lying in bed next to my husband, I stared at the ceiling and imagined what it would feel like to walk through LAX alone, to meet Eliot at a coffee shop, to remember what it was like to be desired by someone who didn't know every mundane detail of my daily routine. Markus was very still beside me, his breathing steady but somehow different. I had the strange feeling that he wasn't asleep, that he was lying there thinking just as hard as I was. But thinking about what? The flight to Los Angeles felt like an escape from everything familiar. As the plane lifted off from our small regional airport, I watched the suburban sprawl disappear beneath the clouds and felt lighter than I had in months. No husband asking where I was going. No daughter needing help with homework. No mother-in-law calling to check on family dinner plans. Just me, for the first time in years. Eliot met me at LAX, looking exactly like the musician he'd become. Artfully disheveled hair, vintage band t-shirt, jeans that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. At 33, he'd maintained the lean build and easy smile that had first attracted me in college. Vesperine, he said, pulling me into a hug that lasted just a beat too long. You look incredible. I'd spent an hour getting ready that morning, choosing an outfit that was casual but flattering, doing my makeup with more care than I'd shown in months. Thanks, you look good too. Come on, let's get out of here. I've got the whole weekend planned. His apartment in Silver Lake was everything my suburban home wasn't. Exposed brick walls, vintage furniture, guitars leaning against every surface. It felt creative and spontaneous and alive. "This is amazing," I said, walking to the window that overlooked the city. "It's home." He opened a bottle of wine, something expensive that Markus would have checked the price of before buying. "So, tell me everything. How's married life treating you?" I accepted the glass and settled onto his couch, which was leather and perfectly worn. "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" "Markus is a good man, a good father, but sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating." The words came easier than I expected, probably helped by the wine and the distance from my actual life. "He worries about everything, questions everything. I can't even go to the grocery store without him asking what took so long." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. That's actually why I'm here, to prove to him that he can trust me, that I can have friendships without him needing to monitor every detail." Eliot raised an eyebrow. "So, this is a test?" "I guess you could call it that." "And what happens if you pass?" "Then maybe he'll relax a little, give me some space to breathe." "And what happens if you fail?" The question was almost identical to the one Markus had asked, but coming from Eliot it sounded different, playful rather than ominous. "I won't fail," I said. "There's nothing to fail at. We're just friends catching up." "Just friends," he repeated, moving closer on the couch. "Is that what we are?" My phone buzzed. A text from Markus. "Hope you landed safely. Sadie says hi." I showed Eliot the message. "See, he's already checking up on me." Maybe he's just being thoughtful. Or maybe he's being controlling. I typed back quickly. "Landed fine. At hotel now. Tell Sadie I love her." It was a small lie. I wasn't at a hotel. But Markus didn't need to know every detail of my whereabouts. That was exactly the kind of micromanaging I was trying to escape. We spent the afternoon walking around Silver Lake, visiting vintage shops and artisanal coffee places. Eliot knew everyone, baristas, shop owners, other musicians. He introduced me as his friend from back home, and I enjoyed the way people looked at us, clearly assuming we were a couple. At a trendy cafe called Moon Juice, I took a selfie and posted it to Instagram with the caption, "LA Adventures." Within minutes, I had likes and comments from friends back home. Tara commented immediately, "Living your best life." My phone buzzed with another text from Markus. "Looks fun. What are your plans for tonight?" I showed the message to Eliot, who rolled his eyes. "Does he always do this?" "Always. Watch, if I don't respond within an hour, he'll call." "So respond." I typed. "Dinner and maybe a show. Not sure yet." Another small lie. Eliot had made reservations at an expensive restaurant in West Hollywood, the kind of place Markus would consider wastefully overpriced. "There," I said, putting my phone away. "That should buy us a few hours of peace." Dinner was magical in a way I'd almost forgotten was possible. The restaurant was dimly lit with candles on every table, and Eliot ordered wine that paired perfectly with each course. We talked about college, about his music career, about the paths our lives had taken. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't broken up?" he asked over dessert. The question should have made me uncomfortable, but the wine and the romantic atmosphere made it feel like a natural part of the conversation. "Sometimes," I admitted. "We were good together." "We were. You understood my music. You never tried to make me into something practical and boring." The comment stung because it felt like a criticism of my marriage, even though he'd never met Markus. "Not everyone can be a musician," I said defensively. "No, but not everyone has to be an accountant either." We walked back to his apartment slowly, the warm LA evening making everything feel dreamlike. When we reached his door, he turned to face me. "I'm really glad you came, Vesperine." "Me too." He leaned in and kissed me, soft and tentative at first, then deeper when I didn't pull away. For a moment, I let myself remember what it felt like to be desired by someone new, someone who saw me as exciting rather than predictable. Then my phone rang. I broke away from the kiss, breathless and guilty. Markus's name flashed on the screen. "I have to take this," I said. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound casual. "Hi, just wanted to say goodnight. Sadie's already asleep." That's good. How was your evening?" "Quiet. We ordered pizza and watched a movie. How was dinner?" I looked at Eliot, who was watching me with an amused expression. "Good. Really good." "Where did you go?" "Just a little place Eliot recommended. Nothing fancy." Another lie. The dinner had cost more than Markus and I usually spent on a date night. Not that we'd had many of those lately. "Well, I'll let you get back to whatever you're doing. Love you." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Love you too." I hung up and stared at my phone, feeling suddenly sober. "Everything okay?" Eliot asked. "Yeah, just my husband being my husband." "Do you want to come upstairs?" I should have said no, should have called a cab back to the hotel I'd lied about staying at. Should have remembered that I was a married woman with a 9-year-old daughter and a husband who loved me enough to worry about my safety. Instead, I said yes. Eliot's bedroom was on the second floor, with a view of the city lights. He put on music, something soft and intimate that he'd written himself, and opened another bottle of wine. "This is nice," I said, sitting on his bed. "It could be nicer." He kissed me again, and this time, I didn't pull away when my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail, then turned it to silent. What happened next felt inevitable, like I was watching someone else make the choices. Someone who deserved to feel desired and appreciated and free from constant questioning and monitoring. I woke up the next morning in Eliot's bed, sunlight streaming through the windows and the sound of traffic drifting up from the street. For a moment, I felt peaceful and satisfied in a way I hadn't in years. Then I saw my phone, 3 missed calls from Markus, 2 voicemails, and a text sent at 11:47 p.m. "Hope you're having a good time. Call me when you get this." I felt a chill run down my spine, but I told myself he'd never find out. This was between me and Eliot, a moment of freedom that didn't have to affect my real life. I was wrong about that. The flight home, Sunday evening, felt different from the journey to Los Angeles. Instead of excitement and anticipation, I felt a strange mix of guilt and defiance. What had happened with Eliot was complicated, but it had also proven my point. I was capable of having adult relationships without my husband's constant supervision. Markus picked me up at the airport, and Sadie ran to hug me as soon as I emerged from the gate. "Mummy, I missed you." "I missed you too, sweetheart." I held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. "How was your trip?" Markus asked, taking my carry-on bag. "Good, really good. Relaxing." He nodded, but something in his expression seemed different, more distant than usual. During the drive home, I told them about the coffee shops and vintage stores, carefully editing out any details that might raise questions. Sadie chatted about her weekend with Daddy, how they'd gone to the park and made pancakes for breakfast. "Sounds like you two had fun," I said. "We did," Markus replied, "though Sadie asked several times when you'd be coming home." "I was only gone 2 days." "I know, I'm just saying she missed you." That night, after Sadie was in bed, Markus and I sat in our living room with the TV on, but neither of us really watching. "So," he said during a commercial break, "tell me about Eliot." My heart skipped, but I kept my voice casual. "What do you want to know?" "How is he? What's he been up to?" "He's doing well. His music career is taking off. He's got a nice place in Silver Lake." "That's good. I'm glad he's successful." The conversation felt strangely normal, which somehow made me more nervous than if he'd been accusatory. "Did you stay at his place?" he asked. "No, I had a hotel room." "I told you that." "Right. Which hotel?" The question was casual, but it felt like a trap. "The Standard. Downtown." "Nice choice." I waited for more questions, but Markus just turned back to the TV. The rest of the evening passed quietly, almost normally, except for the strange feeling that he was studying me when he thought I wasn't looking. The real test came the following weekend at his parents' house for our monthly family dinner. Donna and Ray Dalloway had been hosting these gatherings for as long as Markus and I had been married, and they were usually pleasant, if predictable affairs. This time felt different from the moment we walked in. "Vesperine!" Donna hugged me, but her smile seemed forced. "How was Los Angeles?" "Wonderful, very relaxing." "I'm sure it was. Markus said you went to visit an old friend." "That's right, an old college friend." Ray nodded from his armchair but didn't comment. He'd always been a man of few words, but his silence felt more pointed than usual. During dinner, the conversation kept circling back to my trip in ways that made me increasingly uncomfortable. "So this friend," Donna said while passing the mashed potatoes, "is he married?" "No, he's focused on his music career." "How nice. And you stayed at a hotel?" "Yes, downtown." "That must have been expensive." I felt Markus watching me. It was fine. I saved up for it. After dinner, while the men watched football and Sadie played in the backyard, Donna cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping with dishes. "Vesperine, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is everything all right between you and Markus?" "Of course. Why would you ask that?" "He seemed different since you got back, distant." "He's probably just tired. Work has been stressful." Donna nodded, but her eyes remained concerned. "You know, dear, marriage requires constant attention. It's easy to take each other for granted, to start looking elsewhere for excitement." The comment felt like an accusation, and I bristled. "I'm not looking elsewhere for anything, Donna. I went to visit a friend. That's all." "Of course. I'm sure that's all it was." But her tone suggested she wasn't sure at all. The tension followed us home that evening. Markus was quiet during the drive, and even Sadie seemed to pick up on the atmosphere. "Are you and Daddy fighting again?" she asked as I tucked her into bed. "We're not fighting, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just need quiet time to think." "About what?" "About grown-up things. Nothing for you to worry about." But I could see the worry in her eyes, and it made my chest tight with guilt. That week, I found myself overcompensating, trying to prove that everything was normal. I cooked Markus's favorite meals, suggested we watch movies together, even initiated sex twice, which was more than we'd been intimate in the previous month. But something had shifted. Markus was polite, even affectionate, but there was a distance that hadn't been there before. It was like he was observing me from behind glass. On Thursday, I had lunch with Tara at our usual diner downtown. I'd been looking forward to telling someone about my weekend, to having my feelings validated. "So," she said as soon as we sat down, "how is LA? You've been weirdly quiet about it." I looked around the diner, making sure no one we knew was within earshot. "It was complicated." "Complicated how?" I told her everything. About the dinner, the wine, the kiss, waking up in Eliot's bed. Tara's eyes grew wider with each detail. "Oh my God, Vesperine, you actually did it." "I didn't plan it, it just happened." "But how do you feel about it?" That was the question I'd been avoiding all week. Guilty, but also alive, like I remembered who I used to be before I became just a wife and mother. "There's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to have needs and desires outside your marriage." "Am I?" Because Markus seems to think differently. "Does he know?" "No, and he's not going to. This was just a moment, a test that proved I could have adult relationships without his constant monitoring." "But it was more than that, wasn't it?" I nodded, feeling tears threaten. "It was everything my marriage isn't, spontaneous and passionate and free." "Maybe that's telling you something." "Like what?" "Like maybe you settled for security instead of happiness." The words hung between us, dangerous and tempting. "I have a daughter, Tara. I can't just blow up my life because of one weekend. I'm not saying blow up your life. I'm saying maybe consider whether the life you have is the one you actually want. That night, Markus asked me a question that made my blood freeze. Vesperine, did you enjoy Los Angeles? We were sitting at the dinner table, Sadie between us working on her homework. The question seemed casual, but something in his tone made everyone look up. Yes, I said carefully. It was a nice break. Good. You seemed like you needed one. I waited for more, but he just returned to his meal. Donna, who was visiting for dinner, watched the exchange with sharp eyes. Later, after his mother had gone home and Sadie was in bed, I found Markus in his home office, working on his laptop. What was that about earlier? I asked. What about? The way you asked about Los Angeles? In front of your mother and Sadie. He looked up from his screen, and for a moment his mask slipped. I saw something in his eyes that made me step back. Not anger, but something colder, more calculating. I was just making conversation, Vesperine. Isn't that what married couples do? It felt like more than conversation. Did it? I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. That certainly wasn't my intention. He turned back to his laptop, effectively dismissing me. I stood there for a moment, feeling like I was missing something important, then went to bed alone. I lay awake for hours, replaying the evening, trying to understand what had changed. Markus had always been predictable, sometimes boringly so. This new version of him, distant, watchful, almost strategic, was unfamiliar and unsettling. I told myself I was being paranoid. That guilt was making me see suspicion when none existed. I was wrong about that too. The envelope appeared on my desk at work on a Tuesday morning, plain manila with my name written in block letters. No return address, no postmark, like someone had hand-delivered it during the night. I worked as an office administrator for a small insurance company, the kind of job that paid the bills, but didn't exactly fulfill any dreams. My cubicle was in the middle of a sea of identical workspaces, offering no privacy for personal matters, but something about the envelope made my hands shake as I opened it. Inside were printouts of my Instagram posts from Los Angeles, the selfie at Moon Juice, a photo I'd taken of my dinner at the expensive restaurant, another shot of the city lights from what was clearly a residential window, Eliot's bedroom window, though I hadn't tagged the location. There was no note, no explanation, just the photos, printed in full color, with timestamps showing exactly when they'd been posted. I looked around the office, paranoid that someone was watching me, but my coworkers were focused on their own screens and phone calls. I shoved the photos back into the envelope and tried to concentrate on my work, but my hands were trembling. During my lunch break, I called Eliot. "Hey, beautiful," he answered. "I was hoping I'd hear from you." "Eliot, has anyone contacted you about me, about my visit?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, has anyone called you or shown up asking questions?" "No. Why? Is everything okay?" I told him about the envelope, the photos. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "That's weird," he said finally. "But they're just Instagram posts, right? Public photos." "The one from your bedroom isn't public. I never posted that one." "Then how did someone get it?" That was the question that had been making me sick all morning. "I don't know. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe someone from work is playing a prank." But I knew it wasn't a prank. The photos had been selected too carefully, arranged too deliberately. Someone was sending me a message. That evening, I confronted Markus directly. "Did you have someone following me in Los Angeles?" He looked up from the bills he was paying at the kitchen table, his expression genuinely confused. "What?" "Someone sent me photos of my trip, photos I didn't post online." "What kind of photos?" I showed him the envelope. He examined each printout carefully, his face unreadable. "These are all from your Instagram," he said finally. "Not all of them." "Which one isn't?" I pointed to the city lights photo. I took this but never posted it. Then how did someone get it? That's what I'm asking you. Markus set the photos down and looked at me directly. Vesperine, I didn't have anyone following you. I wouldn't do that. Then who did? I don't know, but maybe we should call the police. The suggestion caught me off guard. If Markus was behind this, why would he suggest involving the police? I don't think that's necessary, I said quickly. Someone is clearly harassing you. That's a crime. It's probably nothing, just someone playing a stupid joke. What kind of joke involves stalking my wife in another city? The concern in his voice sounded genuine, which only confused me more. If he wasn't behind the photos, who was? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the weekend in Los Angeles, trying to remember if I'd noticed anyone watching us, taking pictures. But I'd been too caught up in the romance of it all to pay attention to my surroundings. The next day brought another envelope, this one containing screenshots of text messages. My messages to Eliot from the weekend, including ones I'd deleted from my phone. Can't wait to see you. Markus is already texting. So predictable. This feels like the first time I've breathed in months. Seeing my own words printed out like evidence made me feel exposed and vulnerable. But more than that, it made me angry. Someone was violating my privacy, trying to make me feel guilty for having normal human emotions. I called Tara during my lunch break. Someone is messing with me, I told her, sending me photos and messages from my LA trip. What kind of messages? I read her some of the texts. Instead of being outraged on my behalf, Tara was quiet for a long moment. Vesperine, those messages, they don't exactly make you look innocent. I don't need to look innocent. I'm a grown woman who went to visit a friend. A friend you slept with. That's not the point. The point is, someone is stalking me, violating my privacy. Are you sure it's not Markus? He says it's not. And you believe him. I realized I wasn't sure what I believed anymore. I don't know. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer. A lawyer? Why? Because if someone is building a case against you, you need to know your rights. The suggestion sent a chill through me. What kind of case? Think about it, Vesperine. Photos of you with another man, text messages that could be interpreted as evidence of an affair. If Markus is planning to divorce you, he'd want documentation. Markus wouldn't do that. He's not that calculating. Are you sure? Because the Markus you've described to me sounds pretty controlling. And controlling people don't like to lose. That evening, I watched my husband carefully, looking for signs of deception, but he seemed normal, even concerned when I mentioned getting another envelope. This is escalating, he said. We really should involve the police. I said I'd handle it. How? By ignoring it and hoping it goes away. By not letting some anonymous coward intimidate me. Markus nodded, but I caught him looking at me strangely several times throughout the evening, like he was seeing me differently than he had before. On Friday, the third envelope contained bank statements, specifically my credit card charges from Los Angeles, the expensive dinner, the wine, the hotel room I'd lied about not staying in. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that someone had highlighted the charges and written notes in the margins. Next to the restaurant charge, romantic dinner for 2. Next to the wine purchase, celebration. Next to the hotel charge, why lie about this? My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the papers. Someone knew I'd lied to Markus about where I'd stayed. Someone knew about the dinner, about everything. I looked around the office, wondering if one of my co-workers was involved. Had someone been going through my desk, my computer, my purse? Everything okay, Vesperine? Asked Janet from the next cubicle. You look pale. Just tired, I managed. But I wasn't tired. I was terrified. That afternoon, I got a call from HR asking me to come to the main office. My supervisor, Mr. Peterson, was there along with the HR director, Mrs. Chen. Vesperine, We need to discuss some concerning behavior that's been brought to our attention, Mrs. Chen said. What kind of behavior? We've received reports that you've been making personal calls during work hours, using company resources for personal matters, and creating a disruptive environment. I stared at them in shock. That's not true. We have documentation of several personal calls this week, including one where you were heard discussing private family matters in a way that made other employees uncomfortable. I called my sister during my lunch break. That's allowed. Not when it involves shouting about stalking and harassment. Several employees reported feeling unsafe. I realized they were talking about my call with Tara when I'd been upset about the envelopes, but I'd kept my voice down, hadn't I? I wasn't shouting. Regardless, we need to discuss appropriate workplace behavior. Consider this a verbal warning. I left the meeting feeling humiliated and confused. Someone was systematically undermining every aspect of my life, and I had no idea who or why. That weekend, at another family dinner at Markus's parents' house, I felt like everyone was watching me. Donna's smiles seemed forced. Ray barely spoke to me. Even Sadie seemed more attached to her father than usual. "How's work going, dear?" Donna asked while we were clearing the table. "Fine," I said shortly. "I heard there might be some challenges in your office." I stopped loading the dishwasher and stared at her. "What did you hear?" "Oh, nothing specific, just that there might be some personnel issues." "Who told you that?" Donna looked uncomfortable. "I may have mentioned your situation to a friend whose daughter works in HR downtown. She said there had been some discussions about workplace behavior." I felt the room spinning. "You talked to someone about my job?" "I was just concerned, dear. You've seemed so stressed lately." "So you decided to gossip about me with strangers?" "It wasn't gossip. I was trying to help." "By spreading rumors about my work performance." Markus appeared in the doorway. "Is everything all right?" "Your mother has been discussing my job with her friends." "I was just concerned," Donna repeated, looking to her son for support. Markus looked between us, his expression unreadable. "Maybe we should head home. It's been a long day." During the drive home, I confronted him. "Did you know your mother was talking to people about my job?" "She's worried about you. We all are." "Worried about what?" "About the way you've been acting since Los Angeles. Paranoid, defensive, angry all the time." "I'm acting paranoid because someone is stalking me." "Or because you have something to feel guilty about." The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. I stared at his profile as he drove, seeing something in his expression that I'd never noticed before. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that innocent people don't usually react this way to anonymous photos." "What way should I react?" "Like someone who has nothing to hide." We drove the rest of the way home in silence, but I could feel everything shifting around me. The foundation of my life, my marriage, my job, my relationships, was cracking, and I had no idea how to stop it. That night, lying in bed next to my husband, I realized that the envelopes had stopped coming. There had been 3, each more damaging than the last, and then nothing. It was like whoever was sending them had accomplished their goal. The process server found me at 10:47 a.m. Tuesday, mid-presentation on quarterly claims data. My supervisor's assistant interrupted. "Vesperine, someone urgent to see you." In reception, a woman in navy handed me a manila envelope. "You've been served." I opened it in the conference room, everyone watching. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Irreconcilable differences and adultery. Attached, Instagram photos, deleted texts recovered, bank statements, hotel receipts, new images, me and Eliot